Big hair, big money, big foreign policy change, big groundbreaking technology. The 80s saw America become a greater superpower with all the spoils that go with it. Welcome to WatchMojo.com, and today we're counting down our picks for the top 10 defining moments of 1980s America.
We must act today in order to preserve tomorrow.
For this list, we've chosen moments that we felt best represent this essential decade in American history.
Yuppie drone, yuppie drone.
Number 10, the rise of yuppie culture.
Eggshell with Romalian type. What do you think?
As the upper class thrived under President Reagan's economics, the world began to take notice of yuppies, young, well-educated professionals with a penchant to spend and an obsession with image.
I always use an aftershave lotion with little or no alcohol because alcohol dries your face out and makes you look older.
Inspired by moguls like Donald Trump, yuppies bought only the finest brands, drove imported automobiles, worked out endlessly, and invested in copious amounts of cocaine, at least according to the stereotype.
They don't have a good bathroom to do coke in.
The 1987 Wall Street crash killed the romanticism of the yuppie, but their stylistic influence lived on.
Yup, 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 yuppie drone.
I want my MTV.
I want my MTV.
Number 9. Cable goes mainstream.
On MTV Music Television, you'll never look at music the same way again.
Early in the decade, cable television services became an affordable option for many Americans. A number of specialty channels premiered that vastly affected the country.
This is it. Welcome to MTV Music Television, the world's first 24-hour stereo video music channel.
MTV not only helped unknown artists hit the big time, it also impacted popular fashion and traditional editing styles. ESPN led sports towards years of even greater financial success, while CNN kept people in tune with breaking news. The average way of life was forever altered.
You can depend on us being here all the time. And please, pass the word.
Number 8, the spread of HIV/AIDS.
Which shows that the lifestyle of some male homosexuals has triggered an epidemic of a rare form of cancer.
The HIV/AIDS virus gained official recognition in 1981, kicking off a tumultuous time of death, fear, and prejudice.
And when they started running, did you know that they were running from you or because of you?
Oh, yes.
The disease's early prominence in gay male society led to further issues with homophobia. Without efficient investigation, HIV/AIDS rapidly spread throughout the country's population via drug use, blood transfusions, and intercourse. Cases like Ryan White's raised awareness, leading to slow but steady treatment. Regardless, AIDS had already claimed its largest victim. The sexual revolution was dead.
It would be years later that the revelation he had AIDS also exposed his homosexuality.
Number 7. Developments in the space program.
Good roll program confirmed. Challenger now heading downrange.
The 80s were a tale of two halves for NASA. In 1981, Space Shuttle Columbia launched from the Kennedy Space Center. The flight served as a successful test for NASA's Space Shuttle program, allowing for many complex space missions. However, things came to a halt when the Challenger exploded shortly after liftoff in 1986.
You know, it just looked like a 4th of July fireworks explosion. And certainly the most tragic incident to ever befall the space program, at least at this point it seems that way.
Studies showed significant concerns with proper safety precautions, and the Space Shuttle program was temporarily grounded. Number 6, the war on drugs.
And if you've got to die for something, this sure as hell ain't it.
America faced a dangerous import as crack made its arrival on city streets and created media hysteria.
Steve Young reports on a new kind of cocaine called crack.
A more dangerous form of cocaine, crack and other illegal substances led President Reagan to escalate the war on drugs.
And when it comes to drugs and alcohol, just say no.
Laws like the Anti-Drug Abuse Act of 1986 sought to solve the problem, while Just Say No increased drug education.
It's easy, Kate. All you have to do is just say no.
Drug arrests escalated, though some questioned the significance in comparison to other crimes.
As of tonight, no funds have been placed in escrow, and the Americans, Iranians, and Algerians are still talking.
Number 5. Tense relations with Iran.
As he put it, Iran, quote, managed to rub in the dirt the nose of the world's biggest oppressor and superpower, unquote.
Strained U.S.-Iranian relations had a massive domestic effect when Iranian revolutionaries took American diplomats hostage in late 1979.
It ends with the hostages still in captivity and a world uncertain as to just what is holding up their freedom for at least another agonizing day.
President Jimmy Carter's inability to negotiate a release cost him re-election. Trouble arose later with the Iran-Contra affair.
I've said on several occasions that I wouldn't comment about the recent congressional hearings on the Iran-Contra matter.
Evidence showed that American officials had sold Iran weapons. The U.S. then used the proceeds to aid Contra fighters in Nicaragua, which was previously forbidden by Congress.
And all the while, ways had to be found to contain the U.S.-backed Contra invasion.
Reagan was never proven to know about the sales, but the controversy damaged his reputation.
Once I realized I hadn't been fully informed, I sought to find the answers. Some of the answers I don't like.
Number 4, 1981 tax cut and Reaganomics.
I have come to speak to you tonight about our economic recovery program and why I believe it's essential that the Congress approve this package.
When Ronald Reagan ran for the presidency, he advocated reduced government spending and taxation. He stuck to his guns with a 1981 tax cut on the upper class, hoping that their increased finances would trickle down to lower-income citizens.
Those who do work are denied a fair return for their labor by a tax system which penalizes successful achievement and keeps us from maintaining full productivity.
The cuts set off a large recession, but the economy grew strong and weathered a stock market crash. However, Reagan actually increased military spending and left a massive, troubling budget deficit.
That message was very simple. Our government is too big and it spends too much.
Nintendo, the world's #1 game system.
Number 3, electronic innovations.
The Personal System 2. Will this be a major event in personal computing history or just another new product introduction?
The 80s proved a prominent decade for electronics development. The video game market had been left in tatters following a 1983 crash, but in 1985, Nintendo introduced the NES to North America and erased any memory of it. The console's quality design and impressive library revitalized video gaming. In the computer world, IBM introduced their first PC in 1981. Competitors were blown away, and its engineering became standard, paving the way for the dominance of PCs.
And while the rest of the clone makers have been struggling and agonizing over how to move to 32 bits, IBM now has done it. And I think that other people that make machines in the desktop area are going to have to follow that.
Number 2, pollution persists.
This is by far the largest oil spill ever recorded in U.S. waters. And yet apparently there are still more than 40 million gallons of crude oil remaining on the tanker.
Despite the environmental movement, major ecological problems still existed. In 1989, the Exxon Valdez struck an Alaskan reef and dropped gallons of oil, ravaging wildlife.
And still we're having problems with birds and we're having problems with otters. And so if you look at all these different pieces, suddenly the puzzle starts coming into focus, and it looks very much like we're having long-term damage.
Exxon was using outdated equipment, but ensuing regulations provided hope of avoiding future incidents. Meanwhile, the Chernobyl nuclear power plant accident released radiation across Europe.
Good evening. In the news today, there was an accident at a Soviet nuclear plant causing some casualties.
The resulting concern was helpful in encouraging the USSR to negotiate with America to bring about our #1 moment. Before we unveil our top pick, here are some honorable mentions.
5 seconds left in the game. Do you believe in miracles? Yes!
If you've been anywhere near a television set or a radio these past few hours, you already know that John Lennon of the Beatles is dead.
Specifically, we agreed in Geneva that each side should move to cut offensive nuclear arms by 50%.
Number 1. The Cold War ends. Concern shifts to China.
In China, the will of the people has been thwarted by the will of the people's government.
When he entered office, President Reagan carried a headstrong resolve to end the Cold War. He got his opportunity. With the Soviet economy stalling, Mikhail Gorbachev welcomed communications with Americans. He signed a number of weapons treaties with Reagan, including START I.
You've got the two leaders of these two powerful countries running way beyond their arms controllers and their defense ministries and their state departments and saying, let's get rid of nuclear weapons.
Slowly, Soviet governments gave way to elections, and the Berlin Wall fell. Meanwhile, over in China, student protesters were killed at Tiananmen Square for protesting the communist government. A long-time war was over, but other threats were alive and well. Do you agree with our list? Which events do you think defined 1980s America and beyond? For more informative top 10s published every day, be sure to subscribe to WatchMojo.com.